So today we're going to talk about plans to become an independent artist. So for those of you who are new here, hello, my name is Michelle and I am an artist who has had experience working in the animation industry for the past 5 years. I have published a graphic novel called MEESH the Bad Demon, and I am in the works for 2 more graphic novels. And on top of that, I post comics on Instagram and also make content here on YouTube. So if you haven't tuned in already to the past 3 vlogs I made, because I am currently unemployed and basically I am on a journey to become an independent artist. However, I also do think it's important to mention that by being independent, I don't mean just never working for a studio or a company ever again. By becoming an independent artist, I'm kind of more amongst the lines of having the freedom to come in and out of studios as I feel like it, and also be able to work on my own projects as the bread and butter of what I do. I personally feel like becoming an independent artist goes out the window once you set these really strict rules that you have to abide by, when honestly I think independence is more of the freedom of choice. Because at the end of the day, I loved working in animation. I do really enjoy the time that I have worked in animation. It's just that right now, times are really difficult with the writer's strike, actor's strike, all these streaming acquisitions. And so I just feel like there's a little bit too chaos right now for me to be exerting my energy in that world. So while I'm putting that world on pause, not entirely quitting it, I'm just deciding to allocate now my energy to my own stuff. So in today's video, I'm going to be focusing more on, I guess, my plans to become an independent artist, but one of the major things about it is that I'm trying to lean more into my graphic novel side. But I also think that it's important to know that when you are working for yourself as an artist, a lot of people think like, I just want to work for myself, I don't want to have a boss in life. But the truth is that even when you're working for yourself as an independent artist, the first rule is to accept that you're never going to just be working for yourself. Even when you're working for yourself, you still have clients, you have an audience that you need to appeal to, you have managers, agents. There are still a group of people that you have to meet the expectations of, even as an independent artist. It's just maybe less of a micromanaging experience, which is, I guess, what most people kind of mean when they are trying to look into becoming an independent artist. Honestly, because of graphic novels, I feel like that helped provide the gateway for me to realize that maybe there is a path that I could pursue more independently. Now, I wouldn't say that working on graphic novels right now, though, is like the greatest form of a full-time job. It can be a great supplemental source of income, but at the same time, it's not really that easy to just do graphic novels alone right now, unless if you decide to stack up your graphic novel goals with other side projects, which is what I'm doing right now, which is, of course, all my social media stuff, Patreon, Etsy, all of that jazz. So this past March in 2023, as many of you already know, I published my first graphic novel, MEESH the Bad Demon, which is out now in bookstores near you. You can check it out on Barnes & Nobles or any other independent booksellers that you can find linked down below. And currently we have 3 versions out, which is the American version, the United Kingdom version, and the Mexican version. We still have some other countries coming out, but of course those things take some time. And in the meanwhile, I have been working on a new graphic novel idea, which is more catered to young adult audiences, as I think MEESH was a great entryway graphic novel for me to start my graphic novel career, but I'm ready to do something a little bit more mature. So I needed a place to organize my plans and brainstorm the mood board for my future book, which is why I would love to introduce the sponsor of today's video, Milanote. So as an independent artist, you no longer have the assistance of a production team or managers at work to really help you schedule out how you're going to meet your goals for a project or a job, which is why I think Milanote has been really great for me in planning out my graphic novel, and I think that you'll all really enjoy it too. So here in Milanote, I pretty much planned out my young adult graphic novel idea, and it is still just very lightly in the works. So this story is going to be inspired by my parents growing up in Chinatown in the 1980s, and I really want to actually do a story that explores my culture, heritage, and also some of the experiences that my parents had to go through as immigrants from Hong Kong. And the great thing is you can basically plan a page where you have an overview of all of your projects. Like here, I can pretty much just have concept art and talk about the general idea of the story, whereas I can also organize different folders for inspirations to hold my mood boards, brainstorming, and style inspirations, which is really important because honestly, thinking about what type of style I'm going to go for is gonna dictate what I'm gonna be doing for the rest of this book. So as you can see here, of course, I love Rumiko Takahashi. She is like my childhood inspiration comic artist, and I would really love to do something in the similar style of her comic Urusei Yatsura, but I also want to take some of the cinematic moments of Wong Kar-wai, who's a director from Hong Kong, and I just think that, you know, this is a time in life for me to be proud of my heritage, be proud of people who are from Hong Kong who have also created some masterful works. And then lastly, I wanted to take some traditional Chinese illustrations or paintings to kind of have in these surreal moments. It's kind of magical realism type of book, so I want this to serve as the magical realism pieces. And of course, here is the to-do list. It's always fun to just brainstorm your story, but it's always important to actually have a plan to start putting things into action. I have to check in with my agent. I would like to interview my uncle at some point because he has a lot of information regarding this story that I'm going for. I have to do more sketches of the characters and locations because right now I'm basing it off a lot of just writing and stories that my parents are telling me. And then of course, lastly, I think it's always good to do 5 mock-up pages to just understand what you're going to be doing or the entire pipeline for this book. And you can also do fun things like inserting these little clip art stuff to make it more appealing. There's also another cool thing that you can do in Milanote where you can open up a new board and there are templates that you can work from. And a lot of these templates actually cater to creatives. So if you want to do something that is more illustration based or even a film based one, you can do one to help you organize your characters, your scenes, a shot list, or just a design style that you're going for your project. And all you have to do is just drop in the images so that you don't have to set up the template yourself. I'll talk a little bit more about Milanote later, but I also think it's important to just mention how I've loved just being able to take care of my personal life as well when I am working from home with no job really. So that's why I'm gonna take you all to do my laundry with me. So not seen in this video, but I have a bunch of laundry I need to do right here that has been drying. So bear with me as I discuss my plans to become an independent artist while doing my laundry. Okay, so first you already know that of course with my graphic novel, that is kind of like my current bread and butter. But on top of that, my other plans are of course trying to really amp up what I'm doing on Patreon. You know, if you haven't checked it out already, we are really expanding our community on Patreon where I'm offering email consultations for people, and I feel like I'm actually getting to know some of you better in that way because I get to talk to you all on a more personal level and I get to follow up on your progress and just see where you're at with your art career or journey. And the only downfall of it is that of course I can only open up 13 slots right now because I can't respond to every single email on this planet, but I will say that I do offer one-off email consultations so that for anyone who just doesn't really want to do the membership option, you can just do a one-time email consultation and we can still have some personal one-on-one interaction. But yeah, on top of that, I've also been doing podcasts on Patreon and just really trying to create a more intimate, exclusive community where I do share podcasts where I talk a lot about things a little bit juicier than I do here. And then in addition to that, I am focusing more on YouTube. As you can see, I feel like this year has been a lot better for me in terms of YouTube compared to last year. I did sign on with a talent manager earlier this year, so they've been working with me to pretty much help me get sponsorships and help me monetize this channel in a way that it can further help financially support me as an independent artist. So yeah, I would really like to take this time too to thank the team that has been helping me with being able to support my independent artist journey here on YouTube. And then of course there's other things like my Etsy and Gumroad. I kind of take these as more like tip jar because Etsy and Gumroad isn't like my primary source of how I make a living. It's not really my most major form of income. It's just more like, oh, money that's just nice to have as general support from all of you. And then upcoming in my future plans as an independent artist, which is actually in the works right now, is I actually did start filming my storyboarding course. It is self-paced. I'm not there forcing you. It's just, hey, here's an informational tool that you can use it at your own pace. Use this to help you, especially during this time where there are strikes and stuff happening, to sharpen your skills or re-educate yourself about, you know, how the industry works, what you can expect when you do land a job. So the course that I'm working on now is a storyboarding career course. The point of it pretty much is to not just teach you all how to storyboard, but while I am teaching you all how to storyboard, we are also learning how to navigate the career itself. I'm going to be teaching it in a way as if you are in a studio or work setting, and the timeline of the classes will basically take place like similarly to how you would get a storyboard kickoff, going through your 1 to 3 passes or versions of your storyboards, pitching them, and then kind of what happens when you're done with your assignment, what teams you normally work with. Those are things that I personally never learned in school, and I wish that there was a course that taught me that stuff, and that's why I'm doing a course like that. Ultimately, my goal is to kind of develop more passive sources of income, and I know a lot of people nowadays kind of roll their eyes at that term, which I totally understand because passive income is never truly just passive. There's a lot of work that goes into the forefront before it even becomes passive. It's just more so of, it's not something that you're gonna have to be repetitively doing throughout time. I've been thinking more about, of course, doing courses and selling more digital products instead of just physical ones, because after just re-evaluating all that I do on my social media platforms and my stores, the things that always perform the best are my digital downloads, which is the Succubishes How It's Made, the bite-sized art career plan digital download I have, as well as my email consultations. And my books also relatively do well, but it's only really in in-person events like at Lightbox Expo. And the thing is, I realized that with selling physical products, you have to constantly be launching new products just for people to really remember or be interested in buying them. So it's totally understandable, and that's why I'm totally fine with figuring out ways to create more digital products so that you don't have to wait for shipping, you don't have to like go through these delivery hiccups, and you can just get what you need to learn from me. So basically this is a mind map I made up while I was physically brainstorming things that I could do to monetize as an independent artist, because your different income streams are going to be really important in figuring out how you're going to support yourself and make a living. So there are a lot of things in this chart that I've already done myself, such as YouTube, Etsy and Gumroad, Patreon, selling in person. I've done commissions a while ago. I started TikTok recently, and I've been working in graphic novels. So I kind of listed everything here that I've had experience in doing and things that I could get more experience in doing. And I think those really lie in the teaching territory. There's also live streaming, although I don't really want to get to that stage. This will kind of be my last resort. So what I did was I took all the information from here and I put it on a little scale of least time consuming, averagely time consuming, to most time consuming. And I want to avoid things in this territory, and I want to start focusing more on things here. A lot of these are digital products, which I mentioned I would like to focus more on. Then in the averagely time consuming area, I have like sponsorships on YouTube, but also like filming videos on YouTube and my email consultations and maybe portfolio critiques. In this area, I would definitely also say like making comics, but they currently aren't my form of monetization. Into this area, of course, I have like my graphic novels, like finishing MEESH the Bad Demon, landing a next book deal, and selling a course, which these things take time to do before they even become passive. But things that are the most time consuming, such as live teaching, live streaming, conventions, hosting my own event, or doing commissions, are things that I would always have to be doing like on the spot. Like I will have to be physically there doing these things. And this is the territory that I would just like to make like occasional. Like maybe I'll do these things less than 5 times a year, but I would like to make these more of a constant. And these boxes are pretty much things that, you know, I've just been taking these things here to further organize and break down, where, you know, work to passive, meaning I would have to work on things and then they become passive income. Then work to gain stuff is like, you know, more physical goods where I have to create it once, but I still have to do something afterwards, like shipping out the product, making content and posting it. Then here is actively occasional, which is like stuff that would only happen like once a few times a year, but this is not a pattern that would be repeating throughout the years. Like maybe I'll just do a month in a year doing this, but for the rest of the year I don't have to do that thing again. And then here, active content is like stuff I have to always be doing. So if I wanted to live stream or live teaching, that means I would literally have to be teaching or live streaming throughout the entire year. And I think this would be the most time consuming stuff I have to do, which I don't really want, but it's an option that exists. Eventually, if all goes well, my plan and goal is to eventually hire an editor for my YouTube channel, because honestly, it's like, yeah, I can afford one right now with what I have, but at the same time, I just feel like I have other places I would like to allocate my funds to for the time being. And also on top of that, I would like to eventually hire a colorist for my Instagram comics, maybe, because my Instagram comics don't really produce any direct profit. But getting back into my graphic novel, I wanted to talk more about Milanote and how they're helping me with planning out my young adult graphic novel. So I wanted to dive in a bit more on how I'm organizing this project and make things kind of like black and white and that kind of like contrasty color, which actually goes well with the comic style that I'm trying to go for. But the thing that I love about Milanote is now that I know what scenes from Wong Kar-wai I want, I can also include these freaking color swatches to get the vibe of what colors to include if I do choose to make this comic colored. So yeah, this is my mood board for the comic, and then let's move on to the brainstorming. This brainstorming page is just an absolute dump of all of the ideas that I had. I want to talk about some of the themes, and I took some photos from my real life. You can also include documents in Milanote too, so if you have a whole like Word document or PDF you want to include and you don't want to just slap the whole thing here, you can just include it as a thumbnail. And I circled read me so that I don't miss it. And I created a whole little like character relationship chart just so that we remember who the characters are. And the last thing that I really have to point out that I love about Milanote is you can include like articles, you can include YouTube videos, and you can also include music. So I chose some classic like 80s songs, and I just wrote some notes next to them as to what the vibe I want to go for them is. And now you have a compilation of music that inspires you to make the story that you want to. And lastly for me is the design page, which is the style inspiration. This is where I took a lot of the same images from the mood board. I'm making more of a note as to what I'm going for illustratively. But yeah, now that I kind of discussed that, I do have some other things I need to get to, so follow me. I have to now pack some orders from my Patreon and Etsy, and this month, for the month of September, anyone who joins as either a wholesome bish or a true bish in my Patreon will get a free book of their choice along with their other benefits. So this month I'm pretty much offering anyone the choice of either getting a Succubish's book, Doodlebish's book, or Vera the Siren book. So I have to start shipping some of these out for this month. Other things that I think are really important to have as an artist that's trying to go independent is having low monthly expenses, such as my mortgage is very low compared to the average LA rent, because while you do pay a lot up front for a home, at least on a monthly basis, it is not as bad as when I was renting an apartment. And at least this is all kind of going back into my own money in the future. So again, I'm working on a video for the future about how I was able to become a homeowner in Los Angeles as an artist, unemployed, and I got this home when I was 24 years old. And when I got this home, the interest rates were definitely a lot lower. And guess what? I was also unemployed during the time I got this home. I also do not have a car because currently I work from home and I really have nowhere to really go. And if I do go somewhere, it's not habitual enough of a thing for me to do. So I don't really pay for car insurance. I don't pay for gas. I just pay for Ubers and just going to places, because even though Ubers kind of are expensive, at least it's not a reoccurring expense. And for the most part, I really only go out less than like 5 times per week. There really is no need for me to commute anywhere, and it's an expense that I am okay with not having. In fact, I did have a car previously and it got into a car accident. And after that situation, I just realized how liberating life is without a car. Another thing that's important is staying healthy, because now that my health insurance is on a ticking time clock, and if you don't have a project lined up, your health insurance pretty much has like 1 year left before you start eating into your bank of hours, and then it expires. Then you have to pay this additional monthly cost to just maintain it, or you can just quit your current one and buy a new one entirely. Preventative care is something I value a lot more than just dealing with things when the problem happens. So this is even more motivation for me to stay healthy and like work out, eat healthy, maintain good mental health, and do things that make me happy. But most importantly, I just think that I don't want to live a life just based on good employee benefits. I think growing up, we're always told that you want to work for a good company that gives you a good retirement plan, good pension, good all of this stuff, which is definitely nice to have. But one of the things I learned is you can have things that you have to have, things that are nice to have, and things that you won't have. And things that are nice to have are definitely employee benefits, but it's not a have to have. I think a have to have is more of like my general happiness and the way that I live my everyday life. And if I'm living my everyday life doing stuff that I don't really like just for the sake of these health benefits, I'm not living for myself anymore. I'm living for the health benefits. But yeah, I definitely think that some of the things I've learned in the past few years is that it really doesn't matter what studio, job position, what career thing you have is. Obviously, I feel like we all know these things, and when we grow up, we always hear these messages meaning like, your job doesn't define you, your art doesn't define you, and all of this, and it's always easier said than done. And one of the things that I always kind of remembered was when I first started my first job at Glen Keane Productions. You know, this is when I was starting to do my Instagram comics, and I was growing my following at a more expedited pace at that time. And one of my coworkers would always just come up to me and just be like, you know, why are you working this job? You can just, you know, create a following and just make merch and just do stuff with your comics. But for the longest time, I was still always just like, I mean, I still would like to work in animation. And it's just like, I even went to this panel at CTN that I was a part of where I did a talk, and people asked me like, why don't I just become an independent artist? Why don't I just leave like animation? And the thing is that I don't feel like I need to leave animation, but looking back in time, I was just like, why was I so against just going independent? I just always felt like for some reason going independent just made me feel like maybe I wasn't good enough to make it into the industry. And I think that's a part of me that is just what I'm trying to now no longer use to hold me back. Because Honestly, I will say growing up, especially coming from a more traditional family, it was like already a big enough deal that my family let me pursue art as a career. You know, my mom and I, we had a talk and she told me like, hey, Michelle, we kind of were nervous about you pursuing an art career at first. They said they looked up like an animator salary on Glassdoor at that time in 2014, and the salary was like $30K a year. And my mom, of course, was sweating nervous bullets, but she knew that if this was something that was gonna make me happy, I should go for it. And you know, the fact that she even let me do it made me feel like, you know, I should just continue pursuing animation and just do this as my career, because I ended up making 6 figures just in my animation job alone. And you know, when you have that animation job and all your supplemental income, that's a lot of money. So I think because of that, going fully independent was kind of a nerve-wracking thought to me, because I was just like, I feel like I've been accepted by others because I was able to prove that you can make a career out of art by pursuing animation as a career. And I always felt like, you know, if I just decide to not do that anymore and just go fully independent, then people might say something like, oh, well, I thought like animation could be a career or something. Which it is, and it can be, but it also is dependent on what you want to do as a human being, and all of our dreams and goals in life change throughout time, just like the message that was taught in Tangled. And I don't think that life is always about just staying in one place. I just think that there's always this movement of choices, decisions, dreams, goals that lead you from one place to another. And I always felt like I was afraid of leaving a traditional animation job because I would be seen as maybe someone that couldn't make it as a traditional artist in animation, or I couldn't handle doing a traditional job in animation. I feel like I let all of these fears control me when literally nobody was saying this to me other than myself. And in fact, like I mentioned, I'm not even closing the door to animation. It's just right now is not the greatest time in the industry. And I've had a lot of these side projects that have been going for me, and they've only been giving me more signs to continue pursuing them, because while my animation life is currently a bit on a pause, you know, things like my graphic novel, my social media, I still keep getting emails from people to pursue more things in this trajectory, whether if it's more brand deals, getting more back and forth with my graphic novel stuff, or just more action or momentum is going in that direction. So I'm just like, why not follow it? I'm gonna stop resisting it, because in the past, I feel like when I was in animation, I kept getting all of these like other things from my personal projects, like offering me these things, and I would used to reject them and be like, no, I work in animation, but literally none of that matters. And I know it took a while for me to get to this point in life, but I feel like I needed to work those 5 years in animation, and will continue to be open to more animation projects in the future for me to be able to realize that. So I hope that you found this video helpful. As always, I'm really glad that you all have been seeming to enjoy these vlogs. So if you would like for me to keep making these videos, please support me by engaging in the comments below. Comment, like, and subscribe. The typical YouTube shenanigans actually does really help an independent artist like me out. And I would also like to thank Milanote again for sponsoring today's video. It makes me honestly really happy that I'm able to promote a platform that can better help creatives organize their plans and their goals to make them into more actionable things that they can do to bring their dreams to a reality. You can try out Milanote for free with no time limit. The link will be in the description box below if you would like to try it out. So if you would like to start backing some of your creative dreams or endeavors with some action, definitely give Milanote out a try and let me know what your thoughts are on it, your experience with it, or anything that you're doing with your mood boards or mind maps that's different from mine. I'd be curious to know about your work process. So thank you to Milanote again for sponsoring this video and making videos like these possible. And thank you all for watching and supporting me, and I'll see you all in the next one.